Director Burns, on another idea about the economy. Do you think Putin overestimated what the Chinese might be able to do to offset the sanctions and other economic activities, or do you think the Chinese will step in a way that he might have anticipated?
Thanks very much for the question, Senator. I think he may be overestimating the extent to which the Chinese leadership will be able or willing to help him deal with the quite severe economic consequences of his invasion of Ukraine. It remains to be seen how this will play out, but, I recall after the sanctions that were levied against Russia after his prior aggression in Crimea, the Chinese drove, a very hard bargain over pipelines that the Russians were trying to negotiate. So they weren't, particularly flexible or sympathetic in a way during that period as well. So I suspect there's not going to be any easy out for President Putin as he looks at trying to deal with those economic consequences, not from the Chinese, not from anyone else.
Do we have any sense of how the Chinese have reacted to their recent locking arms with the Russians right before all of these events happened?
I think, Senator, that the Chinese leadership first has invested a lot in partnership with Russia, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. I do, however, believe that the Chinese leadership, President Xi in particular, is unsettled by what he's seen, partly because his own intelligence doesn't appear to have told him what was going to happen. Second, because of the reputational damage that China suffers by association with the ugliness of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. Third, by the economic consequences at a time when, growth rates in China, as you look over the rest of this year, are lower than they've been in 30 years. And fourth, I think, because President Xi is probably a little bit unsettled as he watches the way in which President Putin has driven Americans and Europeans more closely together and strengthened the transatlantic alliance in ways that would have been a little bit hard to imagine before the invasion began. I think the Chinese leadership looks at Europe not just as a market, but as a kind of player with whom they can have an independent relationship and try to look for ways in which they can drive wedges between us and our European allies. And what President Putin has so successfully done is to make that much less likely.
Well, I didn't intend to dwell in this public session on China as much as I'm going to wind up doing it in my 5 minutes, but, the Chinese have also announced their plans, their intention, their capability devoted to biotech, and underlying those activities, I think, is something Director Wray and Director we should be really focused on, is how much that may impact Americans as Chinese try to get more information about Americans in various ways as they develop their own biotech potential to impact populations. I'll let you start, and then Director Haines, I'll come to you.
So certainly the Chinese have shown that they are willing to pursue our personal data at a scale unlike anything anywhere else in the world. They have stolen more of our personal and corporate data than every other nation combined. And then one of the other lessons we saw from the COVID period is their aggressive targeting of COVID research, whether it was vaccines or other forms of medical treatment. And you could almost clock any company's announcement that they were making progress on something almost within days. You could then see Chinese targeting of trying to steal that research.
Right. We certainly know they've done that with personal data, financial data. I'm wondering, with their biotech focus, Director Haines, are they going to be, do we need to be now concerned about genetic data in ways that we might not have been at an earlier time?
Yeah, we do have concerns with biodata across the board, and I think not just genetic data, as you point out, but that's a critical aspect of it, and the collection of that by China in particular, but other countries as well, and how that can be used in the future, particularly as the technology develops. So absolutely.
That's right. You know, I've noticed some of the reporting here and the studies here are you could take this this biotechnology, look at populations here or Africa or other places, and decide to do things that specifically have impact on just a segment of the population that has the genetic code that may be susceptible to that, where their surrounding neighbors and others in the country don't have. I think it's an area we'll be talking more about, and I look forward to discussing that further.